It's been a subdued and slow Black Friday for South Africa amid the tough economic times. Some consumers who took part shied away from choosing, or rather shopping, instead to use cash, a debit or cheque cards. Experts cautioned already strained consumers to avoid getting deeper into debt. Now, to help us unpack the numbers of this year's Black Friday, Shaylen Padayachee, brand manager at Ozow, joins us right now. Good to have you on the program, Mr. Padayachee. So, as online transactions surged on Black Friday, could you share your insights from Ozow's data dashboard regarding the observed patterns and trends here?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thanks so much for having us part of the show. So, in terms of the insights, look, Ozow facilitates payments for millions of South Africans. So our insights really are evident across South Africa. And what we've seen is the spending patterns continue to spread out across the month of November rather than simply on the specific day of Black Friday. We've seen processing values increase, so we've seen more people transact of higher values across the various different platforms. Tech is obviously still incredibly relevant, as well as people going into buying more essential goods, as we've seen from some of the other data shared by some of our partners as well. So really, from a trends perspective, we're seeing very standard Black Friday behavior where people are looking to transact across the month. But one of the things that we did notice this year was that there are some competitions coming into play around the Black Friday period as well, where certain players are looking at giving away smaller quantities of high value goods and almost putting people into a situation where they have to enter voucher codes or coupon codes to try and get their hands on the limited quantity of items. And what that does is essentially it drives a lot of traffic to the online stores. So even if you don't get that specific good, you might be looking on the site for something else. So that's worked out for some of the e-commerce players, and some of the guys, which you might have seen, went down over that period, and their stores crashed, which didn't work out for them. But I think that was a really interesting trend. And I think the last trend there is that a lot more players are coming on board in terms of Black Friday. So not just your traditional retailers and e-commerce stores, but the broader market, basically anyone who's looking for someone to transact online, also kind of jumping on the trend and taking advantage of the Black Friday hype to try and drive traffic onto their sites.
Now, Shaylen, the next story really blew my mind. A mention of a 400,000 Rand spending spree really does raise some curiosity. Could you elaborate on the types of transactions and products driving such high spending?
Sure. So I think since that article was released, there was actually another transaction made for over 800,000.
Sure.
So that was a single transaction made on one of our merchants as well. Obviously, we always look to protect the data of our partners. So I can't tell you who it was or exactly what they purchased. But again, like I said, it was really interesting to see that there are a number of higher value purchases happening over Black Friday. So people looking to take advantage of those deals, even at the higher end of the market. So I think these people, although I won't give away too much, are going to enjoy a really good festive season holiday. But we also saw the other transactions, as you say, so the 400K transaction, as well as another 400K total value purchase of one user who made multiple purchases over that time. I think it was a total of about 20 purchases that led to a value of 400K. I think just showing again that Black Friday isn't necessarily about the smaller value items all the time, but rather people also going after those larger essential deals that they were looking for, that they were waiting potentially the whole year to get hold of.
Shaylen, given the shift towards essential purchases, how has Ozow adapted its own payment platform to really align with these changing consumer behavior during Black Friday?
Sure. So Ozow has always been a platform that services all South Africans. So it doesn't really matter what the transaction is to us. We want to facilitate a secure and safe transaction for all our users and ensure that our merchants don't have to think about the payments process over the high volume periods as well as throughout the year. So we haven't changed much in our system except to say that we've enhanced and made our system a bit more robust, as we always try and do over this time. Our team are always on 24-hour support for our merchants as well, so there's always the availability of our staff to be able to help them if there's any requirements that they need. And I think ultimately what we try to do is we try to make our platform more accessible to South Africans over this time. So although we've always been the instant EFT provider for 48 million South African bank account holders, what we really tried to do was expand our horizons. So we've introduced vouchering on our platform as well, so people can actually redeem a cash voucher on Ozow, as well as implementing a peer-to-peer payments application, which allows people to pay from a wallet directly into a merchant account as well. And we've also introduced something called Pay by WhatsApp, which enables our merchants to send WhatsApp links to customers to enable them to make the transaction via Ozow. As we know, within South Africa, although data is a serious problem, the majority of South Africans do buy WhatsApp data packages to be able to facilitate WhatsApp on their devices at any time. So this was a great measure implemented for our merchants to be able to continuously engage with their customers.
So going back to the data, it also indicates a midnight spike in transactions. What factors contributed to this, and how does it compare to previous years?
So look, I think again, it's down to the merchants and the e-commerce stores mainly, and in terms of when they decide to launch their big deals. They do always try and build a little bit of hype towards midnight and into the early hours of the morning on Black Friday itself. I think that being said, going back to that competition element where some e-commerce players were giving away PS5s, for example, over that time, that really helped drive traffic over that initial period onto their stores. And like I said, if you weren't lucky enough to get that item, you were on the store already, so you might be looking for something else and you might find it on that store. So I think those were the main contributors in terms of that spike. But I think what you would have seen is, contrary to previous years, the spike seems to be getting a little bit softer as the transactions seem to spread out across the month.
So with a focus on essential purchases this Black Friday, how has Ozow adjusted its strategy, and what opportunities or even challenges does this present for your platform?
Sure. So I do think it's about opportunities, and like I said before, it's about being able to service all South Africans. So it doesn't really matter if you're looking to buy a tech item or a household good. We are here to service everyone who wants to make a transaction online. I think whereas most of the essential services or the people looking to purchase those services were going in-store previously, we've seen a trend of these people also migrating online. They can obviously buy those services online, and platforms like Ozow are enabling those individuals to be able to purchase those items online as well. So we're really seeing a big surge in that area as well. And ultimately, where we're looking to get to and where the trend is going is that consumers will soon be shopping completely or almost all the time online, purchasing their goods, not just the big tech items, but also whatever they need for their household or their daily goods as well.
Going back to the data, the average transaction value, just under 700 Rand, is also quite intriguing. Does this align with Ozow's expectations or what you expected for Black Friday? And have there been surprises in spending patterns here?
Sure. So I don't necessarily think it's been surprising, and it is in line with what we expected. We do seem to see that average processing value increase year on year, and this year was no different. Of course, you have to remember that is across various different merchants and different industries as well. So some e-commerce sites have higher transaction values and some have lower. But I think the 700 Rand mark is significantly higher than what we've seen in previous years. And obviously that is in line with what I said previously in terms of more shoppers going online to see what they can buy and where they can transact. And obviously once they identify that the online environment is not just for specific purchases, but also basically anything at this stage, they tend to shop higher values, build their baskets larger, and make one single transaction of a higher value.
I guess it also then also begs questions around the payment experience as well. As e-commerce gains traction, how does Ozow then ensure a seamless online payment experience, and what security measures have been put in place here?
Sure. So like I said initially, what's really important to us is making sure we facilitate a safe and secure payment process for our customers, and to ensure that our merchants trust us to be able to facilitate those payments. So we've taken every step to make sure that we are as safe and secure as possible, and there's a number of measures we put in place, right? So the first one is that we are PCI DSS compliant, which means we comply to the highest regulations that the banks and card providers apply to as well, or comply to rather. We are also ISO certified, so we also keep in line with those standards. I think one of the big steps we've taken this year as well is that we've integrated with banks through an API. So we've integrated bank APIs into our platform as well, which means we have a strong partnership with the banks now, and the service is facilitated through the banks for a really, really secure and seamless service as well. So I think those are the main steps we've taken from a security perspective. As I said previously as well, where we always look to enhance ourselves is through our platform as well. Our infrastructure is always becoming more and more robust, and we're always looking to increase the volume of transactions we can handle, whether that's at one period or over a longer period of time, so that our customers always have the best experience. And the final step there is also ensuring that we facilitate these payments fast. As you know, on Black Friday, you might miss out on the deal if you can't get your payments actioned as quickly as possible. So we've done a lot of work this year to actually increase the speed of our payments as well, which our consumers have benefited from.
Speaking about that, I mean, the real-time updates every 15 minutes on the dashboard provide valuable insights. Can you highlight dynamic changes observed during the day and how Ozow leverages this data for decision-making?
Sure. So the data that we look to collect is always of benefit to our merchants and our customers. So we always look to have a constant feedback loop and ensure that our merchants are aware of what's happening on their platform. That is the main reason that we are constantly looking to update our data as regularly as you said. In terms of internally, when we look at the dynamic trends, there wasn't much of a different trend this year, so there was nothing to really scare us too much. But of course, we look at those insights and make sure that we're able to analyze it on our back end to make sure that if there are any issues, for example, with one of our banks showing irregular transactions for whatever reason, we're able to mitigate that before anything affects the actual customer itself.
So, Shaylen, Black Friday is a global phenomenon. What distinguishes South African trends, and how has Ozow positioned itself to address these unique aspects?
Sure. So I think, as you said, Black Friday itself is something that was really prevalent in many of the first world countries, and it is a day for deals. In South Africa, what I think we tend to see is that it is a need within the South African market. So people tend to save up for the specific period, and it is make or break in terms of should they get the deals or not. And I think that goes back to your point around the essential goods that people are buying around this time. So I think that's the major difference between how people are shopping and purchasing in South Africa versus the more traditional Black Friday markets. From a TPPP or fintech perspective, what's really important for us is that we are able to facilitate the transactions for the broader market, right? So it doesn't matter if you don't have a credit card. It doesn't matter if you don't have access to online facilities. It doesn't even matter if you don't have access to a bank account. We're able to facilitate those transactions. I mean, at this stage, Ozow is able to facilitate even you depositing cash funds into your wallet and being able to transact online. So that's the steps that we've taken to make sure that not only are we servicing the bank account holders in South Africa, but also the cash by choice users in South Africa as well.
Shaylen, lastly, with the rise in online transactions, how does Ozow envision the future of Black Friday and also the evolving role of fintech in shaping consumer behavior?
Sure. So I think the first point is Black Friday is here to stay. We've seen it fluctuate over time, and obviously the impact of COVID has really accelerated people moving to the online space. Black Friday will always be a period where people take advantage of those deals and those specials and set themselves up for not only the festive season, but the early months of the following year as well. And I think we can expect that trend to continue. I think we can expect more brands and more businesses to jump on the Black Friday trend, if you want to call it that, and everyone to take advantage of this high volume period within the years to come. I think there's very few brands who actually don't do that at this stage, and anyone who hasn't been that keen to do it previously has realized what they're kind of missing out on. From our perspective, it obviously presents that same opportunity to make sure that it is an accessible opportunity for everyone within South Africa. Well, from an Ozow perspective, the one thing that we've always been driving to do is to create digital and financial inclusion for everyone. And this helps us do that, right? The things that I've spoken to you about previously with vouchering, with the application, and with enhancing our payments product itself, is all driving towards letting everyone transact over that period. And I think what this does is it spreads the load for also our merchants, where they won't have as many shoppers going in store, and they'll be able to come online no matter what transactional method they choose to use, and to be able to have that seamless experience.
Shaylen, thank you very much for your time and also providing us with valuable insights into Ozow's observations and also the strategies during this Black Friday surge. I mean, it's fascinating to see how the dynamics of consumer behavior and also spending patterns have shaped the experience as well. Now, all things around Black Friday in that conversation. Still to come, Lebo Madubanya has all the latest in the world of sports. Do stay with us.
Hi, Kat. Hello, Kat.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good, and you?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Is it Lebo?
Yes, it's Lebo.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Do you know who's won?
Okay, great.